Yo, did the world's largest country just copy Donald Trump's Bitcoin plan? Russia is now quietly making moves into making Bitcoin a strategic reserve. You heard that right. We had news coming out of the Duma, which is the equivalent to the House of Representatives here in the United States, that they're proposing making Bitcoin a strategic reserve asset. Absolutely crazy. This is Bitcoin's game theory, Bitcoin's incentives playing out in real time. This is what Max Keiser has been predicting over the last half decade or so. The global hash wars are here, and when countries compete for Bitcoin, you win. And also a couple things that have been happening, right? This didn't just come out of nowhere. It was like a month ago or so where it was announced that Russia was going to legalize Bitcoin mining. It also came out that Russia was going to legalize Bitcoin in general through their central bank. And part of the reasons for this, part of the motivations was Putin's like, look, I'm seeing Bitcoin, an apolitical money that's not going to censor me, that's going to help me facilitate international transactions while I'm currently being sanctioned by the US government. This thing kind of looks pretty good. And here in the United States, you have the incoming administration. We have a clip for you guys from Eric Trump from the BitcoinMENA conference thrown by our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine. Just wrapped up. It was in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. And Eric Trump was one of the speakers, and he was talking about how bullish he is on Bitcoin, and he sees that Bitcoin inevitably is going to hit $1 million. So again, you have some of the most powerful countries on the face of the planet, maybe Russia not on an economic level, but on a military level, 100%. So yeah, I mean, this is Bitcoin's game theory, Bitcoin's incentives. This is what Keiser called the global hash war playing out in real time. We all predicted this. We all knew this was going to happen because of the game theory, because of Bitcoin's incentives. But boy, has it come a lot faster than we were anticipating. Guys, it's going to be a great show. If you're enjoying it so far, smash that like button. Really, really helps us with the algos to push this message forward. Of course, I'm joined here today with my brother from another mother, my legendary co-host, always optimistic, Optimus Fields in the house. I mean, Opti, I'm going to keep saying it. Simply Bitcoin, tomorrow's Bitcoin news today, baby, because we've been predicting this. I mean, if you understand Bitcoin's incentives, none of this should come as a surprise to you. This article dropped by our boy over at Bitcoin Magazine, Nick Hoffman, or he's using his full name nowadays, Nicholas Hoffman. And here, the headline of the article for our audio listeners: Russia State Duma deputy proposes strategic Bitcoin reserves. So the equivalent for our American audience and our Canadian audience and whatever, this is essentially the equivalent of Parliament, of the House of Representatives. So it's not the upper house, it's the lower house. And the deputy is essentially the lead of the House of Representatives, right? So essentially the lead of the House of Representatives, to use like the American, equivalent in Russia, the state Duma deputy, proposes a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Absolutely crazy. So here's more details on the breaking news. Today, Russia's state-owned domestic news agency RIA reported that State Duma deputy Anton Takashev proposed creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve for Russia, claiming they have obtained a copy of the document. Takashev from the New People Party sent the proposal to Russia's finance minister, Anton Sulyevnov, to create a Bitcoin reserve similar to Russia's traditional currency reserves. Quote, I ask you, dear Anton Germankov, I'm sorry, guys, my Russian pronunciation is not that great, to assess the feasibility of creating a strategic reserve of Bitcoin in Russia by analogy with state reserves in traditional currencies. The document reported stated, quote, if this initiative is approved, I ask you to submit it to the government of the Russian Federation for further implementation. Quote, in conditions of limited access to traditional international payment systems, we call this for countries under sanctions, cryptocurrencies are becoming virtually the only instrument for international trade. The Central Bank of Russia is already preparing to launch an experiment in cross-border settlements in cryptocurrency. It goes on to say, the Terkashev document explains that creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve could enhance Russia's financial stability, noting that traditional currency reserves such as the dollar, euro, and yuan are all subject to inflation and sanctions, and that a new alternative independent of any individual country is needed. The development continues the trend of countries looking to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve, including the United States, El Salvador, Brazil, Poland, and others. An initiative led by the United States and President-elect Donald Trump, the U.S. is looking to build a strategic reserve of over 1 million Bitcoin, which appears to have caught the attention of certain Russian officials. Just 5 days ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly stated that no one could ban Bitcoin. We have the clip for you guys, locked and loaded, ready to go.
Биткоин кто может запретить? Никто. А использование других электронных.
So for anyone who doesn't speak Russian, the translation is basically like Bitcoin. No one can ban it. It's essentially it's inevitable. It's an electronic form of payment. And we were making the case for you guys that this is a reaction to the Russia looking to alternatives to the US dollar because of the current sanctions implemented on them by the current US government. So again, this is game theory. This is what happens when you politicize money. People seek an alternative. And I guarantee you guys, I'm calling this right now, and our calls have been quite accurate over the last year or so. I'm calling this. Once Russia or one of these countries switches over to Bitcoin, that is a one-way door. They're not going back to the dollar. So essentially, the US government, by politicizing the money, is creating an incentive for people to seek, for other nation states to seek alternatives. However, that's playing with fire because the US government gets a tremendous amount of power from being the world reserve currency. And the more countries continue to opt out of the dollar, the less power the dollar has, meaning the less ability the US government has to print to essentially pay for all the crazy expenses that the US government has to pay for on a yearly basis. So it's like, as soon as they politicized it, this was inevitably going to happen. And of course, Bitcoin was always going to be the solution because Bitcoin is inherently decentralized, it's censorship resistant, and most importantly, it's apolitical. It doesn't belong to any single country. Now, what I've been also predicting for a couple months now is that, and this is going to be a little bit hairy, but I am very, very optimistic with the incoming Trump administration because they are looking for peace with countries like Russia, and they're a little bit more common sense type of oriented. What I'll say, but we'll see, you know, these are politicians after all. But what I will say is that current US sanction policy is not compatible with an open network with Bitcoin. So I don't know, that doesn't mean that, you know, us individuals in the US are breaking the laws or anything. We're not saying that whatsoever, but I'm saying it's an open monetary network, right? So like, how do you stop Russia from using Bitcoin to transact with other countries internationally, right? Like, you can't. And part of the reason that I think that we saw the Tornado Cash case, and the reason that I believe it was so important, is because I think that elements of the US government fundamentally understood this. And I think a large part of their motivations as to why they wanted to sanction open source software, and they're trying to use Tornado Cash as the precedent, was because they saw the writing on the wall and they realized, wow, like, we potentially can't sanction Russia if Russia is using uncensorable money, which is Bitcoin. And that's going to lead to a very important discussion that I think we need to have as a country, which is, should bureaucrats, unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. have the power to get to pick and choose who is entitled to use money and who is not entitled to use money? Because how the current system works, which is a system of exclusion, if you are born in a specific country, you are now not entitled to open a bank account with US dollars. You can't do that. That's why Tether is becoming so popular all around the world, because people want access to it, but through the traditional system, they don't have the ability to access dollars, right? So it's an interesting world, and I think it's gonna be a little bit rough in Washington discussing this. But we'll cover it. We're Simply Bitcoin. Anyways, so this is coming about a month or two after the news breaking that Russia legalizes or is legalizing cryptocurrency mining, so Bitcoin mining. And again, their motivation behind this is to circumvent certain sanctions that were placed upon them by the US government. So again, like this is the game theory, and it was obvious. It was obvious the entire time for anyone who's been paying attention, because the incentives are in place. You have censorship resistant money. And this is honestly I'm not going to reveal who we're potentially having an interview with, but this is something that I want to ask some of the regulators in Washington, like, how are you essentially going to come to terms with this? Because look, the reality is that Bitcoin's an open monetary network. You have to be okay with even your worst enemy using the network, benefiting from the network. How is this compatible with the current system? And I'm very curious to hear what their responses are going to be. Now, they have the ability to, stop the on and off ramps. They have control there. But, if Russia or China keeps their funds in Bitcoin and transact with other countries in Bitcoin, how are you going to stop that? Are they going to fork the chain? This is a very, very deep rabbit hole. And I think that this is going to be a very, very tough pill to swallow. And I think this is going to be a very heated political debate, but it has to be talked about. It has to be talked about. We called this a couple months ago when I told you guys, I said, guys, due to the actions by the current administration, the Biden administration, I don't think it would be a good idea that they won another term. I don't think it would be positive for our industry. We got a lot of heat when we initially brought that up, but I doubled down. I said, no, it's important that we talk about this. I'm telling you, it's important that we talk about this as a community to kind of get ahead of it, because I don't want there to be a clash, right? And right now, how it's currently structured, the system, I think there's going to be an inevitable clash. So it's very, very important that we speak to regulators, we speak to policymakers, and we have that discussion. How is Bitcoin going to fit into the current system? Because Bitcoin, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the way that you're looking at it, isn't exactly going to change for the existing system, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I can't emphasize that enough as well. But anyways, the breaking news for today, the big kahuna is Russia, the world's largest country by landmass, is looking to make Bitcoin a strategic reserve, following in the footsteps of the United States. And once again, elections have consequences. This is not a coincidence that this is happening after the election of Donald Trump in November 5th. And I'm extremely excited to see what happens when he gets inaugurated and this incoming administration goes in January 20th of 2025. Opti, what are your thoughts on this? I want to get your opinion on this, Opti. First of all, we've been calling this, right? Got to give us some kudos and points to ourselves, right? Simply Bitcoin, tomorrow's Bitcoin news today, baby. But also, I got to say, Opti, I'm a little bit worried because like, you know, what are we gonna do, right? Like, how are we supposed to approach this as an industry? You know, are they gonna put pressure on the exchanges and say, listen, you can't take self-custody because if you take self-custody, we can't enforce sanction policy? Like, where does this go in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I have no clue. Considering we've already kind of seen what they've been doing with Operation Choke Point 2.0. Will that get extended into 2025?
But we can assume that's over with the promises that Trump made
to
the Bitcoin industry at Nashville, and not to mention his son actually just spoke at BitcoinMENA.
Yeah, I think that's the big kahuna here, and we'll cover that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I find it interesting as well. And Trump said, actually, I'll keep that for the later part, so I'll put a pin on that. But yeah, I mean, we are seeing that there is definitely like a divide right now. Remember last week we kind of saw Trump tweet about BRICS nations leaving the dollar and how they're going to fight to protect the dollar. And then also on the other hand, he is kind of embracing, you know, the strategic Bitcoin stockpile. So there is, I think, a lot of questions up for debate right now of how this is going to happen moving forward. And I think, you know, as a Bitcoiner, we all can kind of just sit here and watch and just see how the cards play out, because we really have no idea what's going to happen down the pipeline. It seems like we are going to get, you know, quote unquote, good regulation in regards to the Bitcoin and at large, you know, the shitcoin industry. And so I'm optimistically hopeful that this is kind of going to be not necessarily a battle that we will have to face. Hopefully we do get like 4 years of cover here. And, you know, I don't know if I would say that they're just going to capitulate, but if you listen to what Trump or Eric Trump was saying, it almost feels like they understand the writing on the wall and they have to embrace us. And so it is going to be interesting, and I think a little tricky to see how they are going to maneuver this, you know, potential move in the future, because things are heating up. And, you know, for everyone out there that doesn't like Trump, I think it's very clear, like, this is the Trump effect. The fact that he kind of went out and campaigned for pro-Bitcoin legislation and the strategic Bitcoin stockpile, etc. It seems like he's gone more Bitcoin friendly recently. This has made ripples around the world. And it's very interesting now that Russia is also proposing this, because now that kind of, you know, like if the US doesn't actually do a strategic Bitcoin stockpile now, then where you kind of like losing ground against Russia. And obviously that's one of the political mandates right now, is obviously there's, you know, Putin's the big boogeyman in the world. And so if Russia does launch a strategic Bitcoin stockpile before the US, that does put us in a competitive disadvantage. So the game theory is playing out. And then let's go even further. Like, now that Russia is proposing a strategic stockpile reserve, or, you know, strategic stockpile or strategic reserve, now you can only argue that China is also going to propose something similar. So now the big main superpowers right now are all at the very least thinking about doing a Bitcoin strategic stockpile. And as we've been covering the last couple of weeks, the signal is starting to change between, or rather this whole year, from, you know, Bitcoin is like, it's toxic out there, you know, like it's politically toxic, don't touch it, to now everyone has to figure out how they're going to embrace Bitcoin. So it is very interesting that ever since Trump got elected and or came out and talked about the Bitcoin strategic stockpile, now everyone else has to do something similar. So this is how it works in Bitcoin. If you aren't first to Bitcoin, then you are in a losing position. And we're seeing that this is catching on. We've been talking about this for a long time as Bitcoiners. Yes, there is kind of some FUD right now in regards to Bitcoiners, you know, quote unquote, embracing the state, accumulating Bitcoin. But we all knew that this was going to happen. And so am I surprised? Not at all. I was very critical of the BRICS nations going out there and trying to create their own fiat currency. And I even mentioned on that day, like, it's only a matter of time until they figure out that the only solution is Bitcoin. And then what, like 2-3 weeks after that BRICS announcement, we have Putin coming out and saying, like, you can't stop Bitcoin. And now we have a Russian state Duma proposing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And so things are heating up, and they're going very fast. I think a lot faster than us Bitcoiners even thought they would. But this is what happens when someone comes out very publicly and says, yes, I like Bitcoin. I'm going to, you know, put the wheels in motion to accumulate Bitcoin. And now the, you know, the global hash war, the global game theory around Bitcoin is playing out. And so, hey, as a Bitcoiner, I think this is going to obviously increase the buying demand and the price of Bitcoin. On the flip side, it is going to be very interesting to see which superpower becomes the first to, you know, create a Bitcoin strategic stockpile. So it is very interesting. Things are heating up. It's going to get really crazy in 2025 and further. Like, if one of these nations, let alone if 3 of these nations all propose or rather pass a strategic Bitcoin stockpile, like, this time is very, very clearly different. Like, the buying demand that will come from nation states with or without a money printer to accumulate Bitcoin, that's going to be more of a floor than we've ever seen before. They're going to be accumulating so much Bitcoin. Like, now is the time to continue to stack. Don't take your foot off the gas, because, hey, we may never come back down to 100K if this does get kicked into motion. Like, I'm really not a believer of this cycle is the super cycle, but with all this stuff playing out, I think the odds are starting to grow a little bit that if these nations and corporations do start to accumulate and acquire Bitcoin for the long term, the buying pressure is going to get crazy. Like, you know, we know Saylor's going to do that $42 billion buys of Bitcoin over, what was it, like 4 years, I believe. Now, if we have, you know, a couple more billionaires doing something similar, plus nation states doing something similar, the floor is going to be exponentially higher than we've ever seen before. So things are getting absolutely nuts. And I personally, it is a bit surprising. Obviously, Nico, you kind of mentioned the meme of, like, I forget who it was in the chat, but your Bitcoin, tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. But it's very easy to predict where the future is going if you understand what's going on with Bitcoin and you change your operating system. And so, you know, am I surprised that this is happening? Not really. Am I surprised that it's kind of happening so quickly? Yes, that's the part that is a little more surprising, that, you know, ever since Trump got elected, it's like the dominoes are falling very quickly. So whether you like or dislike Orange Man, I think he's starting to kick the dominoes now, and everyone has to take Bitcoin seriously. And also on the, you know, the sanction stuff, like, we've been talking about this for a long time. I honestly was surprised that Russia was going to create, or rather the BRICS nations was going to create their own fiat currency when, like, they firsthand experience understands what's happened with fiat currencies. And now I think this is a great development. Again, whether Russian State Duma and actually gets put into law, then that means all the other BRICS nations are also probably going to propose something very soon. So again, the gradually then suddenly meme is playing out like in real time, and we might be seeing a lot of suddenly happen. And man, I'm here for it. It really does feel like Bitcoin's taking over the world in 2024, and I think it will very clearly take over the world in the next cycle.
100%, 100%. Also, breaking news, everybody. Microsoft votes no on the Bitcoin Treasury. They will be back. You know, people, institution, whoever it is, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. That's the way the cookie crumbles. That's the way that Bitcoin works. But update for you guys, official Microsoft, the Microsoft board, the Microsoft shareholders, they vote no for adding Bitcoin on their balance sheet, but they will be back. Anyways, guys, before we start the show, I want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Guys, Simply Bitcoin is powered by our partners, and we're extremely picky on who we choose to partner with. So that brings me to our lead sponsor, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, BitcoinWell.com. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. To get started, you put in your email address, bada bing, bada boom, takes 2 to 5 minutes to sign up. And what makes Bitcoin Well different than every other on-ramp, it's that it's non-custodial, meaning when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, they go straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, meaning they don't even allow you to leave the funds on the exchange. You would be buying Bitcoin the right way. For higher net worth individuals, if you're looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out their latest product that recently launched, Bitcoin Well Infinite. It's a Bitcoin OTC desk with a white glove service. So if you're tired of dealing with Coinbase, if you're tired of dealing with the UI that's a computer, that's robotic, and you want to deal with a human being that will literally hold your hand through buying, selling, or any questions or concerns you might have about Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite is for you. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email me at nico@bitcoinwell.com. Also, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And you can redeem those points towards the wishing well, which we're going to do right now. We're tossing a coin into the wishing well. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. You win every time you toss a coin into the wishing well. And if you use promo code SIMPLYBTC, again, SIMPLYBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well for an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have lots to talk about today, guys. The show is just getting started. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to Stampseed. All right, everybody. Guys, you want to properly secure your generational wealth, and you want to do it properly. That's why you shouldn't write down your seed words. You should literally stamp them onto a plate of titanium. I mean, like, I see this comment in the chat basically criticizing the stamp seed. Guys, it's not dumb at all. It's literally how I store my seed words, because essentially the contrast that you have is essentially writing down your seed words on a piece of paper. Could you imagine if there's a fire at your house, God forbid? Like, the stamp seed, this is what it's for. It's time proof. It's going to, you can dump it in salt water. Literally, they put a blowtorch to it and it survived. This is the right way of storing your seed words. I'm not kidding. Anyways, guys, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $94,840. Block height, 874,133. Sats per dollar, 1,054. Market cap, 1.88 trillion. Bitcoin price in gold, 35.2 ounces. I don't like that one. I'm going to remove it. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 10.03%. Percentage issued, 94. I just don't know what, like, you know, what the gold at, like, I don't know what that means. Percentage issued, 94.25%. Decline from all-time high, negative 8.5. Realized monetary inflation continues to go down, 1.16%, continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Anyways, the BitcoinMENA conference just wrapped up, and it was being thrown by our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine. It was being hosted in Abu Dhabi, and the son of the presidential candidate, Donald Trump, had an amazing speech. And this guy should just have you so bullish for 2025, because All the planets and stars are aligning for an explosive year. You have nation state adoption, you have corporate adoption, you have individual adoption, you have an upcoming administration that is not only friendly to Bitcoin, they're celebrating with Bitcoiners once Bitcoin reaches certain price points. It's absolutely insane. So we have the speech from the conference. And again, shout out to our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine for continuing to throw some of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. Let's check it out. Here we go.
But now more than ever before, now after everything I've witnessed, having maybe the greatest look behind the curtains of anybody on Earth into what the systems truly are, how the systems are manipulated, Bitcoin is actually proving to be the greatest complement to the hard assets our family loves so much. You know, just like real estate, obviously Bitcoin's scarce. There's only 21 million. I don't need to tell anybody in this room that. You know, name another commodity that's capped. Name another commodity that as prices go up, it's not further exploited. Guys, if gold ever went to $20,000, you'd be tearing down this building. You'd be looking in the concrete pillars over there. You'd be trying to mine gold. You'd be changing the supply dynamics. With Bitcoin, you can't. You know, with Bitcoin, Bitcoin's supply is capped. That scarcity, that hard limit, it makes it incredibly valuable, especially as these assets are being purchased in the billions. That's why you see the price skyrocket the way it is. But unlike real estate, Bitcoin's not tied to geography. It's global. It's instantly liquid. You know, try selling this convention center to a REIT right now. You know, I'll see you in 2 years. Try going out and selling a big office building. You know, it will take you 18 months to do. At the end of it, you're going to want to shoot yourself in frustration. You know, think about the complement to hard assets that Bitcoin is, right? It's instantly liquid. You can buy or sell it while literally having dinner with your wife or your husband or whoever it might be. It's borderless. You know, it can be transferred, it can be sold, it can be, you know, moved with the click of a button. It's a global currency. It doesn't rely on traditional banking systems. It's not subject to the corrupt governments that we talked about before. We see them all over the world. There's corruption everywhere. There's no banks, there's no lawyers, there's no title agencies, there's no brokerage commissions, there's no middlemen. You don't need any of this to operate, to buy, sell. You don't need it to build. And that's why Bitcoin is such an unbelievable asset. Bitcoin and crypto, guys, they truly has the ability to change the world. It has the ability to disrupt traditional banking systems, you know, in the biggest way, which really have been controlled by far too few. And I might be speaking against our own interest. We probably did better in that world than anyone. But Bitcoin is inclusive. It gives everybody the opportunity around the world to participate in ways that they never otherwise would have thought, no matter of their wealth, no matter of their location, the geography. People in developing countries, people who otherwise wouldn't stand a freaking chance. It gives them tremendous opportunity. And people very rarely ever say that about Bitcoin. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a thing that should be celebrated. It should think.
I mean, okay, guys, first of all, and I'm not trying to make an excuse or whatever, but we have to understand that Trump is basically almost 80 years old, okay? You know, what surprised me, that was the first time watching that video, he has deep knowledge of Bitcoin. He has deep knowledge of Bitcoin. And this is the son of, and someone corrected me in the chat, and I appreciate that. This is the son of the president-elect, ex-president, he's already been president, but just elected president, but president, then the second term, the 47th president of the United States. And his son has a deep understanding of Bitcoin and the implications and what makes it different than gold and the absolute scarcity of Bitcoin and all the other implications. He laid it out. He understands what this is. And again, this is the son of the incoming president. So I think that's a big effing deal. That's a big effing deal, in my opinion. So again, shout out to our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine. Guys, continue to up the bar in these conferences and the speakers that they manage to get. And you know, the enlightenment that we get from these speakers to hear their talks, whether that was the Orange Man himself in Nashville, RFK Jr. Going in hard in the paint, you know, or the president's son in Abu Dhabi just this weekend. Incredibly impressive. And, you know, Eric Trump knows what Bitcoin is. I can't even imagine how Barron Trump, his understanding of Bitcoin, you know, he probably already has a passport. He's probably already taken self-custody, you know. Hopefully he's not too much into meme coins, but yeah, man, it's incredible, Opti, from my perspective. That was the first time I watched that video. What's your take, brother?
Yeah, well, I was gonna joke and say the same thing. I wonder what Barron thinks about Bitcoin, because he seems to be the one that's really on the ball. But just hearing that,
can I pause you for a sec, guys? Smash, sorry, Opti. No, you interrupt me all the time during the culture, so I don't feel bad. Guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, help us break 250 likes within the first hour of the show. We're already at 196 likes. We're about to break 600 live viewers just on YouTube alone. We're at 3,000 live viewers total between YouTube, Rumble, and X. So, guys, we wouldn't be here without you. We appreciate you. We love you. If you guys want to continue to push the orange signal forward, smash that like button. All right, Opti, it's all yours.
Yeah. Like I was joking, you know, I want to hear Barron talk. And also we just heard Barron's voice for the first time like this week. So I want to hear him go in on Bitcoin. That's probably a better speech. But everyone's saying in the chat that he's just parroting a script that he wrote. Yeah, guys, that's usually how presentations go. But from just being, you know, just on the surface, just hearing what he's saying, it does sound like he's a Bitcoiner, and it does sound like he understands what is actually going on. It looks like he has done his research, and I don't think any of us are really, you know, like, I don't think we've priced in the fact that maybe the Trump administration does understand Bitcoin than they've let on. I know a lot of people have been saying like, oh, Trump's a politician, he's just, you know, parroting his script writers might know what's going on, but it looks like the Trump kids have done their homework, and it does seem like they are understanding Bitcoin. And there was one point, of course, I have to do the, you know, the typical Maxi thing where, you know, he just had to slide in crypto, obviously, because they have their shit coin. I forget what it's called, like World Liberty coin or whatever. And so just to be clear here, it is not and crypto. The only thing that does what Eric Trump was saying right there is Bitcoin. It is Bitcoin only. That's the only thing that is actually going to do all the things that Eric Trump was just talking about. And if you kind of eliminate that and crypto part, because we know it's incentives, they have their own coin, you know, they're kind of shitcoiners, but it does go to show that he has done his homework. And, you know, can you really see how that isn't the case? I mean, they have been on the back end of all of the things he's been talking about. Though the part that I find the most interesting, and we kind of talked about this in the beginning, and this is what I was going to bring up in the beginning, but I wanted to wait until we heard that clip. The part that was the most interesting to me was where Eric Trump was talking about that embracing Bitcoin might be against his own best interest. And that is the most interesting part about that clip to me personally, considering all the stuff we've been covering the last week. You know, I mentioned it earlier, Trump kind of came out against BRICS nations dropping dollars and Treasury. And then on the other side, he's embracing a strategic Bitcoin stockpile. And, you know, it's kind of hard to circle that square here. But you can tell that they've done their homework, and hey, this is one of those things where it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings meme, you know, where like you got to throw the ring into the fire to kind of usher in all the things we talk about. And I think that is one of the concerns we're all kind of watching as Bitcoiners. Obviously, we are very skeptical of politicians and people that are within the system because they benefit from the fiat dollar. And we've heard some rhetoric from Trump kind of embracing the dollar, and we've been very very critical on a lot of people whose patriotism is so wrapped up in fiat currencies. And we argue the opposite, that it is very patriotic to embrace Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically, built on these American principles of property rights and freedom. And so it is interesting to hear Eric Trump, one of the sons of the soon-to-be president or president-elect, talking about Bitcoin and the fact that him embracing Bitcoin might be working against their best interests. And it is going to be interesting to see what happens in 2025 when Trump does get into office, whether they are going to follow through with the strategic Bitcoin stockpile. Now there is kind of a lot of factors playing into that, whether it is Russia or China or other countries and states kind of talking about a strategic Bitcoin stockpile or reserve. And so I think they have done their homework. Yes, he is, kind of being a politician on the stage, reading a script. That's kind of what people do when they're presenting. They have their outline so that they don't forget what they're talking about. But when you hear him talk, it does seem like he's done the homework and is at the very least kind of falling down the rabbit hole and understanding what's going on with Bitcoin. Obviously, we got to get him over the hump and realize that it's not shitcoins that are going to do that. It's only Bitcoin. But we have heard a lot of conversations coming out from politicians and some of the regulation coming out in regards to being pro stablecoins, which I'm not really a fan of. But we understand the mechanics in behind the scene and what's going on. So hearing that clip there, I thought it was a pretty powerful speech. To me, it seems like he knows what he's talking about. Yes, of course, with the caveat about the shitcoins there and Bitcoin and crypto stuff. But I don't think we've priced in the fact that the Trump administration, or rather the people within the Trump administration, understand Bitcoin. I wouldn't say maybe as well as all of us here, but they are understanding Bitcoin and the significance of it.
That speech, Opti.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
That speech, that was impressive, man. That was, I'm not going to lie, it was impressive, But anyways, guys, it's going to be a great show. Still so much content to get to. We got the culture with Opti. We got the news segment, and of course, we dropped a poll for you guys. I want to get your guys' take. What will be the all-time high in 2025? 38% of you guys, 300 of you guys voted. 38% of you guys, which is the majority, have voted that you anticipate that we are going to break 300K next year. Incredibly bullish. Damn, bro. Anyways, guys, like I said, if you guys are enjoying the show, help us break. Oh, we're almost at 250. Help us break 300 likes within the first hour of the show. So smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content. Let's get to the news. We still have so much to cover. Let's check it out. I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your peace of All right, everybody, this is Opti, and he's not on his phone. He's actually on the Passport by Foundation Devices. Guys, this is the perfect gift to give to somebody that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by self-custody. The Passport makes it convenient to take self-custody without sacrificing security. Guys, get yourself a Bitcoin hardware wallet today because you're going to need one to take self-custody the right way. We recommend our partner Passport by Foundation Devices, promo code SIMPLY to get a discount. All right, everybody, let's get to today's news. Starting off with, oh man, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna say it again so people understand, because I'm gonna be bad. The midterms are coming in 2026. And, Simply is going to be highlighting pro-Bitcoin candidates, and we're going to be highlighting anti-Bitcoin candidates. And in 2028, we're going to do the same thing because we're not going to get caught with our pants down like we did this last election cycle. We want democratically for the anti-Bitcoin politicians to get elected out and for the pro-Bitcoin politicians to get elected in, regardless of political party, because Bitcoin is for everyone. So why am I saying elections have consequences? Well, to remind you guys, right? You have the change in stance from Russia. You have the change in stance from Morocco. You have the change in stance from China, right? The Chinese judge saying that Bitcoin is property. It's legal for Chinese citizens to own Bitcoin. And do you think that all of that is a coincidence? You think all of that is happening roughly around the same time that Trump was declared the winner of the 2024 election? No, of course that's not a coincidence. Elections have consequences, right? Can't emphasize that enough. And I'm going to keep beating that battle drum because a lot of Bitcoiners are inherently anti-politics, which rightly so, you should be, right? Like, we've lived in a political system where nothing changes. I completely empathize with that vantage point and that perspective. However, right? And I also believe in the theory from the sovereign individual that Bitcoin and information technologies like the internet, like social media, is eventually going to make politics irrelevant. However, we are not there yet. We are still in the transition phase. And in the transition phase, we want pro-Bitcoin politicians in positions of power and influence because it will help the regulatory environment, therefore helping Bitcoin entrepreneurs build Bitcoin products and businesses without fear of repercussions or regulatory crackdowns, as was clearly shown with the exposure of Operation Choke Point 2.0. We have even more data for that, for in that regard for you guys today. So first, I want to get to this. The U.S. Treasury compares Bitcoin to gold. So to get their specific wording, primary use case for Bitcoin seems to be a store of value, aka digital gold, in a decentralized finance world. Guys, do you know how massive that is? So this isn't just magic internet money anymore. They're saying this is digital gold. And again, do you think that's a coincidence that that's happening at the same time that Jerome Powell says basically the same thing? Let's check it out.
Or in the Federal Reserve itself, in terms of the system. What do you think of that idea?
I don't think that's how people think about it. I mean, it's so, people use Bitcoin as a speculative asset, right? It's like gold. It's just like gold, only it's virtual. It's digital.
Same exact wording as the Treasury. They got the memo. And where'd they get this memo from? Well, they got the memo because they want to keep their jobs and they see the incoming administration and they say, oh, I have found Satoshi. That's essentially what is happening, right? So going back to the theme, and I'm sorry, guys, you know what? I felt guilty initially, but after the Trump pump, after all this positive news that's been breaking, elections have consequences. And we at Simply Bitcoin, we will support any candidate, regardless of political party, that supports Bitcoin. All right, everybody. So moving on to some things that were uncovered regarding Operation Choke Point 2.0. You guys know that we are not fans of the Bank Secrecy Act. The Bank Secrecy Act essentially allows the government to access a lot of financial statements that Americans have. They also introduced this regulation when the law was implemented in the 1970s that essentially every $10,000 transaction had to be reported to the United States government. However, if you adjust for inflation, $10,000 back in 1970 is the equivalent of $80,000 worth of purchasing power today, right? So anyways, so let's see what the House Judiciary GOP has uncovered. New report, how the federal government weaponized the Bank Secrecy Act to spy on Americans. Think your finances are private? No, I never thought that. Think again. This new report reveals how under the Biden administration, the FBI and the Treasury Department have manipulated federal laws like the Bank Secrecy Act to access Americans' private financial data without a warrant. It also started after a whistleblower told the committee that following a date in January, Bank of America voluntarily provided the FBI with a list of individuals who used Bank of America cards in the DC area during that time without legal process. In response, the Judiciary GOP and weaponization launched an investigation. We uncovered evidence of federal law enforcement engaging in broad financial surveillance, prying into the private transactions of American consumers. In fact, the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, aka FinCEN, and the FBI facilitated multiple back-channel discussions with financial institutions to gather Americans' private financial information. The federal government used sweeping terms like MAGA and Trump to flag Americans and even treating the purchases of Bibles or firearms as signs of extremism. Okay, now why is all of this important? Well, this doesn't surprise me, right? You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. You know, I also don't blame incentives, right? If you have the power to go after your opposing political party, you're going to do it. I don't blame them for doing that. What Bitcoiners are advocating for is a system on which you cannot do that. You cannot do that. No one has that power to censor. No one has that power to debank someone who is taking self-custody with Bitcoin. So I'm not going to put too much blame on the Democrats because the Republicans did the same thing back in the 1950s. During the McCarthy era, they went after their political opponents. The problem is the ability for the government in general to weaponize money because they control the money. How do you fix that? The separation of money and state via Bitcoin. It's all I'm advocating for. So does any of this stuff surprise me? No. And by the way, this is the same government that is asking you to trust me, bro, with a central bank digital currency. We're not going to use this against you. Like, I'm sorry, guys. I don't trust you, bro. You have a very bad track record of trusting you, bro, and it being used against American citizens. So anyways, that's my take on that. It's not a partisan one. I don't think any political party, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, should have the ability to weaponize money because it's human nature. Like I don't blame them. They probably believe that, they were genuinely going after extremists. I don't blame them for thinking that. But, if you have the power to go after who you believe is an extremist, you're going to use it. So I don't blame them for doing that. Because then it gets divisive and then we get into this whole partisan discussion. I'm not interested in getting into that because essentially we want to remove the human element out of the equation. Instead of trusting, it's don't trust, verify. Instead of trusting on the system, it's, Bitcoin has rules. You follow them, benefits you. The rules don't change. The supply doesn't change. It's censorship resistant. You can't change the supply. You can't change the rules of the money to benefit yourself. So that is the perfect system for money because then no one could weaponize it. And if you can't weaponize money, the next step is discussion. If you believe that the other party is wrong and they're incorrect in their beliefs and whatever, you're going to have to win in your argument in the battleground of ideas, the way that things should work, right? So yeah, man, that's my stance on that. Doesn't surprise me that this is getting uncovered. And again, this is why I think central bank digital currencies are a terrible, horrific idea. It's such a bad idea on so many levels. I cannot emphasize that enough. So yeah, that's my take, Opti. What's your perspective on this, brother? This is something like we're on YouTube, so we have to be YouTube friendly. But what's your perspective on this in regards to, they want us to trust them with CBDCs, bro. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I don't think that's a good idea. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, am I surprised by this? Not at all. I think if you've been a Bitcoiner for more than a couple of years, then you knew that this was already the case. I think the interesting part about this is, one, now that it's coming to light, of course, like, we are vindicated. We've been saying this for a long time, for a while. As a Bitcoiner, it was more like I don't know if this is the right framing, but it was more like a running thesis for a lot of us that we knew this was happening, and you could see examples of this, but there was never anything really written or, any real report coming out in regards to the Bank Secrecy Act. And now it's coming to light. And so am I surprised? No, not at all. We've been covering this for a long time. As a Bitcoiner, you knew this was taking place. But what I do find interesting is that now that it is coming to light, hopefully more people understand why Bitcoiners do what they do and why we are so adamant about Bitcoin, is because we understand that the powers that be have abused their power. And we ask the question all the time here on the show, like, if the powers that be do not want you to speak freely, what makes you think that they want you to transact freely? And now both of those points have been very thoroughly exposed. And as the meme goes, or the saying goes, the best disinfectant is light. And so now that more people are being exposed to the actual problem, hopefully more people will search for the solution, because we've been talking about that on this show for a long time, is that, first of all, you got to understand the problem at hand. And once you understand the problem at hand, then you start to search for the solution. But if you talk to an average person out there, like, I don't know if you guys talk to your parents about stuff like this, but they still think we're like crackpot conspiracy theorists, and we're like, no, like, this is how the world works. And now it's coming to light, so hopefully more people are starting to realize the actual mechanics and the strings that can be pulled to, stop dissent, or rather to basically control the population. And again, we have the data points now. We have the reports exposing all the stuff we've been talking about. So, like, I was thinking about this earlier in a different regard. It's like, if you don't trust two dudes on YouTube's in hoodies, well, maybe you'll trust this official report. And earlier I was kind of thinking of, like, man, rip to all the people that didn't listen to us, two random dudes on YouTube and are looking at 100K Bitcoin and feel extremely poor right now. And it's like, hey, if you don't trust us, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But at least now there's a bunch of reports out there that are kind of saying the same thing that us Bitcoiners have been saying for a very long time. This is how the world works. And if you are asleep at the wheel, then you don't see why Bitcoin is a solution, why there's so many adamant Bitcoiners out there, because, hey, maybe we are 65 IQ people out here, but we understand how the traditional financial world works better than the educated, people with PhDs, etc. And this is how the world works. Now, I do kind of want to mention one thing in regards to the U.S. Treasury Report. First of all, it is very interesting, again, to see how quick the dominoes fall. Remember, for a long time in the last year and further, the last 15 years, Bitcoin has been like this internet nerd money. Who needs money? Who needs a digital internet money to buy drugs? They've been painting us as financial terrorists and financial criminals, et cetera, et cetera. And now we have, again, another report coming out from the U.S. Treasury saying that, oh, wait, yeah, actually, you might want to hold some Bitcoin. It might actually be this digital gold thing. And, of course, again, we're seeing this narrative kind of come out right now where Bitcoin is only like a store of value / speculative asset. but that is still a long way from them saying, oh, Bitcoin is, what was it saying? Like Bitcoin is just hot air. You know, there's nothing backing it and it's useless and has no value. And it's like, cool story, bro. It's at 100K. And now we're getting these reports come out, which is them kind of saying, okay, actually it's them bending the knee. Like actually, you know, Bitcoin kind of does have a place in a traditional portfolio. It may be, you know, it may just be for those crazy libertarian off the grid people that are very scared about some oncoming, you know, unknown collapse. It may be more like gold here. So I think these are baby steps. Obviously, as a Bitcoiner, I would argue that Bitcoin is just like the best money. It's the best way to transact in the digital age. It's obviously going to be and maintain and has been the strongest store of value, period. I think it's easier to exchange on the internet with. Like it's my personal unit of account. So all those three metrics, in my opinion, it's the best form of money, period. Or if you're going, you know, beauty on, the best form of pseudo money, period. If, you know, we're going down that rabbit hole. But I think this is a very interesting development that we've seen right now, is where they're bending the knee to kind of giving some benefit to Bitcoin, even though it's only gold right now. Soon enough, I think we will probably get to a point where they're saying it's the best money. Obviously, the U.S. Treasury is not going to say Bitcoin is the best money because they think the dollar is the best money. So you can see the incentives at play. And when I hear Jerome Powell and the U.S. Treasury kind of say like, oh, it's just a speculative asset, it's just gold, the Sun Tzu quote comes to mind, like, you know, don't correct your enemy when they're making a mistake. And so as much as the Bitcoiner in me wants to be like, no, it's the best money, it's not just digital gold, I'm like, I'm okay with this. Like, go out there and say it's just digital gold, let people use it and save in it, and, you know, like, do what you have to say to appease your overlords. But Bitcoin is very clearly going to overtake the world. All we need is a foot in the door, and all of this is going to go away. And you know, very soon they'll be like, look, I told you guys, we love Bitcoin, etc. And it's like, hey man, I love this narrative. I actually, as much as I think Bitcoin is more than digital gold, I absolutely love this narrative right now, because hey, we'll transact with it. You know, this is the sly roundabout way to take back our power. And if they just give us
peacefully, legally,
peacefully, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they just give us a crack in the door
within the lines.
100%. If they just give us a crack in the door, you know, just a little opening, it's like the meme, the Trojan horse of freedom. And so, hey, call it digital gold all you want. I'm personally not a fan of the digital gold meme, but hey, baby steps, we're getting there, and they have to capitulate. This is capitulation as far as I'm concerned. We've totally changed the narrative around Bitcoin. Yes, we're still kind of going through like the initial stages of like, oh, hey, if you want to speculate on Bitcoin, go for it. Versus a couple years ago, it's like, oh, it's only for speculation. You don't want none of this. You know, it's like, you don't want none of this Dewey Cox. You don't want this best performing asset in the world. Like, it's just digital gold. Who needs a pet digital rock? And it's like, hey, I do, but you know, have fun calling it digital gold, and Bitcoin's going to take over the world. So amen. I'm okay with it.
Amen to that. All right, everybody, before we go on to the news, we are going to feed some goats. Shout out to our boy Lightning Goats. That's right, guys. If you guys want to beat me to it, just scan the QR code and you will feed some goats in real time. You will see their reactions. How much do I owe? $9.95 next. And we are going to feed the goats. Boom. The lightning has been sent. Oh, feed triggered. Feed triggered. Nothing happened. Wow.
Wow.
Oh, wait. No, wait. It's 40 sats to go. It's 40 sats to go. It's 40 sats to go. That's the problem. 40 sats. Okay, 40 sats. Let's see. 40 sats. Boom.
Do you have the audio on though?
I think so. I think the audio's on. Oh, feeder triggered. Oh, the goats. The goats. Oh man, I love lightning goats. All right, everybody, let's get on to the culture. We have lots to talk about today. Let's check it out. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com. All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's newest sponsor, the BitBlockBoom conference. Guys, this is going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. You definitely don't want to miss it. Mark it down in your calendars right now. April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th, April 6th of the parabola year of 2025. It's going to be hosted in Dallas, Texas. Guys, the BitBlockBoom conference holds a very special place in my heart because it's the first time me and Opti met each other in person, was at the BitBlockBoom conference. This is the perfect conference to network, to potentially get a job in the industry. This is a perfect conference where it's not big enough where you get lost in the sauce. It's just the right size. So you have the opportunity to go up to some of your favorite Bitcoiners and spark up those conversations, whether that's Dante, whether that's Rustin, whether that's Opti, whether that's all the speakers that are going to the conference this year. You definitely don't want to miss it. Get your tickets now before the prices go up. Use promo code BBB21 to get $100 off your ticket. Again, BBB21 to get $100 off your tickets to the BitBlockBoom Bitcoin conference in 2025 in Dallas, Texas. All right, everybody, let's see what Opti has for the culture today. Oh, Ray Dalio, oh man. All right, has he admitted something?
Yes. He's gone down the rabbit hole. Anyways, the reason I wanted to bring this up today, guys, is because we are starting to see a cultural shift, and I think it's really on theme with everything we've been talking about today. And if you guys don't know Ray Dalio, obviously he's co-founder of a hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates. It's like the third largest hedge fund in the world. They have, depending on the metric, assets under management, I think it's like 124 billion, but I also just got another metric, it's like 225 billion. So he's got a lot of assets under management. And for a long time, you can see that he's being, a little crypto friendly or Bitcoin friendly the last couple of years. There was a time when he actually said here, and I have a quote, I don't think digital currencies will succeed in the way people hope they would. And this was 2020. So he's, I think for a while he maybe was doing that, billionaire FUD playbook that I've been talking about here on the show for a long time. But he is now coming out and saying, I think, the quiet part out loud. And again, we bring examples of this, of people in powerful positions that are saying a lot of the things that us Bitcoiners have been saying for a long time. So he is still a little hesitant, a little skeptical. But as the title goes here, I'm on Cointelegraph, Ray Dalio predicts global debt crisis, which sounds a lot like the Foss, James Lavis, Larry Lepard meme we've been talking about for a long time. The debt spiral, it seems to be underway. And he backs Bitcoin and gold. So, of course, here we go, just kind of going in. Billionaire investor Ray Dalio expressed concerns about a potential pending debt money problem in global finance and urged a shift toward hard assets like Bitcoin and gold. Sounds very familiar. It sounds like now the culture is shifting. It seems like there's a phase shift around Bitcoin ever since it hit 100K. Now, Dalio, founder of one of the world's largest hedge funds, Bridgewater Associates, said he would invest in hard money like gold and Bitcoin while avoiding debt assets. The veteran investor referred to, quote, unprecedented levels of indebtedness seen in all major countries, including the US and China, stressing that its current levels would not be sustainable. Again, it sounds like us Bitcoiners. It sounds like everyone is finally able to come out and say favorable things about what's actually going on in the economy, which is one, they're printing obscene scenes about money. The debt is getting way too high, and you don't want to be owning debt assets, and you might want to go into hard money assets. And here we go. Quote, "It is impossible for these countries to be able to not have a debt crisis in the years ahead that will lead to a great decline of money value." Again, quote, "Steer away from debt assets like bonds and debt. I believe that there will likely be a pending debt money problem," Dalio said, referring to debt as one of the 5 big forces driving the global economy alongside money, economy, internal political order, and external geopolitical order. And so he goes, quote, "I want to steer away from debt assets like bonds and debt and have some hard money like gold and Bitcoin." And now, historically, in 2022, he kind of was talking about, yeah, like allocate up to like 2% of your investment portfolio on Bitcoin. And he has been kind of saying, hey, I'm more pro gold than I am pro Bitcoin. But now I think the signal is changing. And as I was saying a minute ago, there's been a fundamental phase shift ever since Bitcoin has broken that 6-figure number. And going forward, I think we're going to see more powerful people. And remember, guys, he's a hedge fund. He's a billionaire investor out there. And so as a Bitcoiner, maybe you're like, yeah, who cares what people say, slay your heroes, et cetera, et cetera. But when someone like Ray Dalio comes out and says like, yeah, I think there's a debt money problem and you probably want to hold some hard assets, that is signaling to everyone that not only we have a problem, but we know what the solution is. And us Bitcoiners have been saying this for, I don't even know how long, like forever. This sounds like exactly what Bitcoiners have been saying for years. I don't know if you watch any other Bitcoin content, but the likes of James Lavish, Greg Foss, Larry Lepard, we've been talking about the debt spiral. Are we at the position where the debt spiral is inevitable? Not necessarily, but we are starting to enter into very crazy inflationary times. And the only way to protect yourself is to hold on to hard assets. Now, if you couple all that with what I've been telling you about the BRICS nations in the beginning of the show, you're starting to see that the smart money, and I hate using that term, but the people that understand what's going on with traditional finance, they're moving away from these debt assets. So if you are an individual out there, if you're a normal person, you don't have a, you're not a billionaire, you don't own a hedge fund, like I would take this as very clear signal that two, idiots on YouTube might know what we're saying when, hey, you want to move away from debt. Again, the national debt interest is starting to get out of control. And that's not just only in America. This is happening everywhere. We're seeing hyperinflationary scenarios play out in the past couple of years all around the world. And the signal here is that you want to drop the fiat money, guys. This is why we constantly tell you that, hey, if you got to transact in dollars to survive, by all means. We're entering this like bimetallism era where there's dollars to spend and then there's Bitcoin to store. Yes, if you are an analog or a dinosaur out there, maybe you want to buy gold. Like I love wearing gold. It's pretty, I joke all the time. I'm going to have a gaudy house once gold gets demonetized. But what you need to do, we are in a digital era. We are going further into a digital world. You might want to get some digital money in case it catches on. This is a store of value. You want to hold the hard money, AKA Bitcoin, because everything divided by 21 million, they can't debase your currency, censorship resistant, permissionless, et cetera, et cetera. You've heard all the memes before. It is trending towards Bitcoin. All roads lead to Bitcoin. So when I hear Ray Dalio kind of come out a little stronger and being like, yeah, actually, maybe a 2% allocation to Bitcoin isn't enough. Maybe you want to drop all your debt assets and go into hard money. All I hear is, hey, maybe you need to buy as much Bitcoin as you possibly can so you can store it long term. So, Nico, it looks like ever since we broke that 6-figure, the knees are bending, the capitulation is happening. There's a fundamental cultural shift, a phase shift happening right now where it's no longer, career suicide to embrace Bitcoin. It's almost like that's the smartest move to be playing right now. And again, I say it all the time. Very few people understand what the problem is. But if Ray Dalio is saying this, if all the Bitcoiners are saying the same thing, if we're hearing even Jerome Powell and nation states around the world kind of talking about dropping debt, dropping U.S. treasuries, dropping the dollar, and they're all kind of angling that maybe Bitcoin is something to hold, I don't know about you, but that is signal to me to be like, yeah, I am not only correct, confirm my bias, but more people need to hear this message that there is a looming debt crisis playing out. And there's only one way to really protect yourself as far as I'm concerned, and that's holding Bitcoin. And so I hear Dalio say, yeah, I'm trying to hold hard money. And I'm like, let's go. Like, maybe Nico and I know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like it's pretty crazy. It's pretty humbling going down this journey of, you know, when Opti and I took the show live, the next evolution of Simply. One of the first things that I told Opti, I said, Opti, like, we're kind of like reporters, you know, and then like, you know, because you start off with like just wanting to be a YouTuber and you don't know what that entails. And I'm like, dude, like, we kind of report on the news. And one of the things that we started noticing was we would pick up on trends before like legacy media would pick up. Like, and this was in the times where like Tucker was still with Fox. And like we would say something about inflation or about money or about censorship, and then Tucker would cover it on his show like 2 days after. It would be like, whoa, we're onto something. And then this isn't even mentioning like the recent kind of behavior from the legacy media where they just straight up just forgot about the truth in totality. Not all of them, but a big percentage of them. Opti had me triggered with Chris Hayes yesterday. and I was just like, and you know, and then that's really when it hit me with the Elon tweet where he's like, you are the media now. And essentially what we're witnessing is the replacement of the legacy media by new media, which is the rise of independent content creators. And I'm going to kind of weave this back in with the whole Ray Dalio thing. Exactly. The weave. Like, yeah, we got it right. Like, yeah, it feels good to get it right. Imagine, you know, Ray Dalio is one of the most successful people on planet Earth. And just, you know, two humble Bitcoin YouTubers and content creators and Xers and Rumblers, we called it. We called it first. And I don't think it's because me and Opti are, you know, particularly like geniuses or anything like that. I just think that because we understand Bitcoin and we have common sense and we have faith, you know, a lot of these things are not that difficult to understand. It's actually incredibly obvious that Ray Dalio eventually was going to bend the knee, just like it was incredibly obvious that eventually Putin was going to bend the knee, just like I'm calling it right now. It's going to be incredibly obvious when China is going to have an official release, not just from a judge, basically saying, you know what, actually, we're going to walk this back. Maybe they're going to continue using Hong Kong as a proxy, but I wouldn't be surprised if the CCP did a whole 180, especially if this strategic reserve thing gets passed in the United States. So yeah, man, stay winning. And I'm super honored, guys, to get to be able to do this. This is, you know, me and Opti's dream that we've been fighting for tooth and nail to kind of build this platform and tell you guys the daily Bitcoin news. Better said, the world news, just from a Bitcoiner's perspective. And you know, it continues to surprise me how many of these things we get right before a lot of legacy media even catches on to it. And you know, if in the beginning I was surprised and I would call Opti and I would, you know, I tend to talk a lot and Opti would pick up and we'd have like an hour and a half conversation of just be like, dude, like, did we really front run Tucker Carlson on this, you know, whatever the news was of the day? Like, I can't believe it. But then it started to become a trend in terms of like Bitcoin news. And we called this with Russia. We called this with, you know, with Ray Dalio. I'm calling it with Microsoft. Microsoft will eventually buy Bitcoin. I'm calling it. It's inevitable. They're not going to have a choice. So they might delay it right now because, you know, they're taking an ideological stance and Bitcoin isn't a real treasury asset and blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, bro, say whatever you want. But I know you're going to come back because eventually everyone bows down to the king. We were covering when Simply Bitcoin was around when BlackRock and Larry Fink were saying that Bitcoin is no more than an index of money laundering. Simply Bitcoin was around when Goldman Sachs was saying something very similar. Fast forward a couple years, guess what? Goldman Sachs it came out that they hold $700 million worth of Bitcoin or Bitcoin equivalents through the ETFs or MicroStrategy. Like, yeah, it's not surprising. I'm glad to say we told you so. You know, but it's a trend. If you guys want to hear what's going to happen in terms of Bitcoin world and Bitcoin news, tune into Simply. You'll probably get the news way sooner than anywhere else. But again, I don't think it's just because me and Opti are super geniuses or anything. It's just we work on first principles. We have faith. We understand Bitcoin's incentives. We're Bitcoiners. And we've been paying attention to the news 5 days a week for the last 4.5 years straight. Right. So anyways, man, doesn't surprise me. Glad Ray Dalio's on our team. I want to see Bridgewater officially announce that they're holding Bitcoin. That would be a huge win. But, you know, I think Trump was right with what he said at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. You guys are going to win. You guys are going to keep on winning. And so far, since he's been elected, that prediction has come true. Now, is that all because of Trump? Of course not. But, you know, it's just funny how all of that stuff works. So, guys, we love you all. We appreciate you all. We wouldn't be here without you. You know, this has been some of Simply Bitcoin's best weeks in terms of views and engagement. So on behalf of the entire Simply Bitcoin family, Nico, Opti, Dante, Rustin, Jacob, John, Parnica, Sophie, the whole Zoomer crew, you know, we wouldn't be here without you. We really appreciate it. And guys, we understand how much of a privilege it is to be here. And we're going to continue to try to do our best to give you tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. All right, guys, love you all. If you guys enjoyed the show, smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. But the number one thing you could do to help push the peaceful Bitcoin revolution is share this content. Get the message out there. Share this video. Share Bitcoin content in general. You know, and it's your responsibility, right? This is a peaceful revolution. You know, play your part. Orange pill the people around you. Orange pill your family, your friends. It doesn't matter whether they're liberals or conservatives. Bitcoin is for everyone. Take action, take agency, and eventually we are going to win. We're winning already, but we're going to win even harder. So guys, love you all. We'll see you on tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.